Hello again, everyone. Today on Tarot Reviews with Tallulah, we're going to be reviewing the Vintage Wisdom Oracle by Victoria Mosley. And I just need a sip of tea because I'm doing a few videos in a row here. I had some reviews that have been highly requested and that I wanted to get done before I really start focusing on the Sacred Feminine series, because that's going to take some time and it's going to be an intensive series for me at a personal level. So many of you have asked me about the Vintage Wisdom Oracle. And the funny thing is, like, somehow I never heard about this deck, and I don't know how I had missed that it was going to be published. It was coming out soon. I believe it was the beginning of this year, or maybe late last year when it came out. Let me just check. 2014. But one of you on the Facebook page just left me a comment and said, "Hey, I just got this deck. It's really, really great. I think it would be up your alley, and you should check it out." And I love it when you guys do that, because somehow I end up missing all of these releases. And you would think I would know, but I end up missing it. So anyhow, I ended up purchasing it because I am someone who loves vintage. I think you all know, loves vintage things and vintage photography, collage work, etc. So I knew right away that I was going to enjoy having it in my collection just from the few images I had seen online before I purchased the deck itself. It is published by US Game Systems, and it comes in a box that's slightly smaller than Blue Angel's boxes, but it's nice and sturdy, hard cardboard. It's one that you can store your deck in, and the image, I don't have the box with me because I recycle my boxes. Let me just find. This is the image that you will see on the cover of the guidebook itself. As you can see, the cards themselves are quite large. Here is the Sacred Rebels Oracle card and card size, and this is the Vintage Wisdom, so a bit bigger than Blue Angel's new size for cards. Sometimes I'm disappointed in US Game Systems and their card stock. This is pretty good. I don't think you'll be too disappointed in it. It's not very glossy. It's got this kind of an interesting texture to the cards themselves. So they don't slide too easily, and they store well if you're someone like me who likes to leave your decks out. So this is the guidebook in typical US Game Systems form. The guidebook doesn't give you a whole ton. You do get a little bit of information for each card, so you'll have an understanding of where you want to go with your intuitive side. And then she has a very brief introduction, and then at the end there's a few pages talking about working with the deck. There is a 4-leaf clover spread, a spyglass spread, a penny farthing spread, the walled garden spread, and the chatelaine spread. So, and here's an example of the chatelaine spread. So she does give you some spreads if you're someone who really likes to work with spreads, and that's very nice. The cards are not numbered. You look them up by title in alphabetical order. So you can see you are getting some information, and her story is quite beautiful, and that takes up a few pages, so she talks about that, and then she just gets right into the card meanings. So it's a good guidebook for US Game Systems. It's not as meaty as I like my guidebooks to be. But she does discuss symbolism in this deck as well. This is the backing for the cards. A lot of you love this backing. It's not actually my favorite. I just feel like the images themselves are so beautiful that I wanted something a little more like most of the images I love, not so much this face here. But this is very beautiful. It has a very fairy feeling, even though it's called the Vintage Wisdom Oracle. And it's also a very feminine feeling deck. The images are quite soft and lovely, and they do pull you in a very beautiful way. So I'm just going to show you some of the images now. This is one of, so you can see that the cards have titles like Centering, Strength, Purity, New Beginnings. This is a Bogoro print, I believe. Reflection. So you have some vintage photography that's showing up. Here's Adventure, which is really beautiful and a lot of fun. And here's Kindred Spirits. And she's got this beautiful color collage going on as well. Here's Faith. that I actually really enjoy, and it's not like that more photo manipulation type of artwork that you all know drives me nuts. This is Trust. And there is symbolism, as you can see, mostly represented by the animals, but a really beautiful thing, here's Gratitude, is that there's also some vintage artwork from basically pre-Raphaelite artists. As everyone knows, one of my favorites being Waterhouse, that are included in this deck. Just let me find you one so I can show you. It's not an overwhelming amount, but here is a Waterhouse painting that she's done some artwork around. This is Shadow Self. So again, this is a deck that does create balance as well. The dark is acknowledged with the light, which is beneficial for those of us who are working with all of our facets of the self on our path. Here's Wisdom. There's an owl there. So there's just, this is truly a beautiful deck, and it's very different than most of the decks out there. Here's another Waterhouse. Here's Circe. It's a Waterhouse painting, and then she's added some beautiful background, and this is Intention. And then you've got great pieces like this of vintage photography too, with collage, divine timing there. So it's just, here's another Waterhouse. This is one of my favorite Waterhouse images, and the backing's all been changed, of course, to his, but the woman has stayed the same. Another Waterhouse. So you can see that there's a nice balance between the two. Here's another Waterhouse. And it's very, oh, this is beautiful. And this is a Bouguereau. Or Bouguereau, however you choose to pronounce that. But that's a gorgeous one. So the colors are faded. They're beautiful. There's lots of pinks and reds. Lots of earth tones. And here's another owl with a Waterhouse. So they really, really pull you in. And I can tell you this. I have, in the boutique where I work, Made on Earth, I have a small section where I sell some decks in the store. And my little card that I have, describing the deck for people who look at it is cheekily precocious. And that's how I feel about this deck. It's not a deck that I use constantly or that I feel I need to work with every day. It's a beautiful deck that has this very playful feminine side that I like to pull out and work with probably about once a week. And it's really when I need to bring in that feminine Aphrodite feeling of playfulness and joy and sisterhood and friendship and beauty that I'll choose to work with this deck. So for me, it has a very specific area, and it's really related to that more archetypal energy of Aphrodite or Venus, and when I need to pull that into my life. I'm someone who works with that type of archetype a lot. So this is a deck it's wonderful to have in my collection because it's one that does have a beautiful focus on that, and yet it covers the human experience. So I can interact with the archetype of Aphrodite even when I'm, say, perhaps experiencing a period of loss or self-doubt or fear. So this is a deck that I enjoy using in that way and has a very specific space in my life that it holds. It's a deck that likes to sit on Alice, my piano, and she's a very cheeky, saucy wench herself. So they work well together, and I think they really love energetically holding the same space together. It's not a deck that I've used with other people up to this point. I purchased the deck mid-January. I didn't work with it in January, but I worked with it throughout February and the month of March. And so it's one that I've primarily just been using for myself because it's so fun, but I have a feeling this is a deck that's going to be really chatty and like to work with a lot of people at some point in the future for me. So I definitely recommend this deck, especially if you're looking for a more feminine feel that is inclusive, joyful, cheeky, fun, playful. It's looking at all of our experiences in life, but finding the sweet in them all. I think this deck is really focused on that. And it does have a very fae feeling to me. So if you're someone who works with fairies and who's looking for another deck to add to their collection along that line, I think you'll find that there are some very cheeky fairies that have shown up in this deck as well and who chose to work with Victoria Moseley in the creation of this deck. So I would say if that's the sort of deck that you're looking for, that you feel like you'd like to bring into your life, and you don't have to be feminine to interact with this deck, or be in a female body to interact with this deck. Even if you're male or identify as masculine, this is a deck that you can add to your collection when you're looking to interact with the feminine in a way that is inclusive and is working as a whole to find your way through something if you're experiencing difficulties. It's also a wonderful deck to celebrate with and to really be in that mother archetype space with, of enjoying life and appreciating the fullness and the beauty of the human experience. So it's a deck that I have no gripes about, no complaints about. It has a specific space in my life, and I'm very thankful to have a deck that holds that space, because I actually don't have a lot of decks that have that energy and that hold that space in my life. So this is one that's special for that. And even though she's not one I work with daily, she's one who shows up when I need to interact with Aphrodite in, again, a balanced, full way. So I hope if you're considering purchasing this deck that this video helps you to make a choice about that. And I will see you very soon for the Sacred Feminine series as we start diving into that. And this just might be a deck that you'd like to use for that series as well. So I will talk to you soon. Many blessings. Take care.